Hi there. So, another 20 minutes or so-ish of murder mayhem and maybe a few laughs. Tell me, what does Christmas, a cabin in the woods, Uncle Randy, and heavily armed townsfolk have in common? If you immediately stood up and said, there's going to be another National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation sequel, you're wrong. And we don't need that. No. Today we're talking about the Tiede Family and the heroes that they are. I'm John.
And I'm Kat.
And this is Castagas.
Another great intro. Gosh, you're so talented.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Well, Christmas is coming, so
Yes.
Let's not get too much into the Christmas cheer yet. Let's bathe in the bloody snow of December.
Yes, hey, I like that. The morbid part of me likes what you just said there.
Messed up. So you folks are pretty lucky. We've taken a break from playing Skyrim all weekend long to
Hang out with you guys.
and talk about people that have died because of other people.
And in the Christmas season.
In the Christmas
We're
season.
keeping it thematic.
Yeah, very seasonal.
Speaking of us being weird, we are weird and nerdy people, and we like making jokes. It's part of us being awkward people.
What she's trying to get to is that this is a disclaimer. We make off-color jokes during a true crime
We
podcast.
would never, ever do it at the expense of the victim, but it might come at the expense of where they come from or the suspect or whatever it may be. But if that is not your jam, that's perfectly fine. There's other great podcasts out there for you, and we won't take it personally.
We don't give a shit. We don't know you.
Exactly.
So,
But thank you for listening.
Yeah. So, don't get pissy with us if we make a joke.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
All right, on that note, are you ready to get started?
Nope, but okay.
We are drinking a nice white wine that was a wedding gift.
Yeah, it was a Portuguese wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
A la vida.
A la vida. Yeah.
Yes, cheers.
So, salud.
Okay. So, today we will be talking about Rolf and Kay Tiede.
Rolf and Kay?
K. K-A-Y-E. They
Okay.
married on May 24th, 1963.
Boomers.
Rolf and Kay have always dreamed about having a large family, and family was always a high value for both of them. And they were also part of the LDS Church, the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Oh, that's my favorite church.
And
I like my saints to be latter-dayed.
I thought you were a Scientologist.
I'm a seismologist.
So family is very sacred to the LDS Church. And from the church, I Googled them. And from the Church of Jesus Christ's website, that's the website,
Oh, okay.
They state in the guidebook.
There's a guidebook.
There is a guidebook.
Catholicism doesn't even have a guidebook.
They state, quote, family is the most important social unit in time and eternity. God has established families to bring happiness to his children, allow them to learn correct principles in a loving atmosphere, and prepare them for eternal life. End quote.
That sounds like a recipe for mistreating all your relatives.
I think keep this in mind though, because I feel this comes back. You're looking behind me out the window.
Sorry, I was just looking at we got like a doily for a goddamn curtain, and
Okay.
there's a hole in it.
All right. You can cut that out.
I'm not cutting that out.
All right. So, starting their family together was extremely important to them. But unfortunately, Kay and Rolf did experience difficulties trying to conceive. So that led them to adopting their first child, Lene. And a few years later, they adopted their son, Sean. However, just weeks after finalizing Sean's adoption, Kay found out she was pregnant and gave birth to a daughter, Trisha.
Okay.
The Tiedes were over the moon with their family of 5. So we'll fast forward to December 1990. Described as heaven on earth, the Tiede family was getting ready to head up to their family cabin in Utah for Christmas, a tradition that they held every year. Christmas at the cabin. It was a picturesque and secluded oasis nestled in the Utah mountains.
Oh my God, this sounds so bad already.
It's so remote that the road is about 4 kilometers away from the cabin. So the only way to this cabin in the wintertime is by snowmobile.
So this is The Shining. We're getting to The Shining, folks.
Kay, the mother, gave the cabin the name Tiede's Tranquility.
Not Skyfall.
It was typical.
Not the Overlook Hotel. Sorry.
It was typical for the Tiede parents to travel separately, a child or 2 with each parent. The reason for this is unknown. However, this could have been from an incident that Kay's mother Beth had in 1983, a car accident that killed her husband William and severely injured her. So it's speculated that they didn't want to ever leave a child without a capable parent. So they travel separately with the children in case something happens to the other. That's just speculation, though. On December 20th, Kay and her son Sean arrived to Oakley in Salt Lake City, Utah. Kay's sister Claudia met them there, so the aunt.
Mm-hmm.
While they were traveling up to the cabin by snowmobile, they noticed a man that was clearly not dressed for the negative 20s weather.
Oh, was he wearing like a Hawaiian shirt?
He was like in a very light jacket and jeans and running shoes.
It's a windbreaker.
So concerned, Kay asked if he was okay and if he needed any help. The man, keeping up with his creepiness, walked away from her, not answering her at all. This definitely made Kay uneasy. The next day, December 21st, Kay's husband Rolf arrived with their 2 daughters, Trisha and Lene. Still feeling very creeped out about her experience with the mystery man, Kay told Rolf and the kids about it and asked Rolf to bring the shotguns up to the cabin.
That seems like a bit extreme.
I would do the same thing. If you have the guns, bring them to the cabin.
I tried to speak to someone on the road. They didn't answer me, and they
That's
weren't
not-
dressed for the weather. Get the guns.
Yeah.
Get the guns. Someone didn't respond to
It's
me.
a small area. I'm sure people know each other there. So he clearly looked out of place.
Well,
And
you didn't say that.
I did say he was out of place.
He was wearing an Adidas windbreaker.
That night, Sean stayed with his Aunt Claudia, while Trisha and Lene stayed with Beth, Kay's mother, their grandmother. On December 22nd, Kay, Beth, and Lene went to Salt Lake City to do some shopping. Sean opted out, continuing to stay with his aunt. Around noon, Kay, Beth, and Lene returned from Salt Lake City and loaded up the snowmobiles with their shopping. When they arrived back at the cabin, Lene saw a figure quickly retreat from the master bedroom window.
Oh.
She got super excited over this, thinking it was her cousin David there to surprise them. Though, trekking up in a snowmobile, her hands were super cold from the journey, and she had to run inside to run them under some hot water. While in the kitchen, she saw a figure in her peripheral vision by the refrigerator. Still giddy, thinking it was her cousin David, she giggled to herself while still warming her hands. But it wasn't her cousin David who stepped out from beside the fridge.
It was her Uncle Mark from Bali.
It was a man with frizzy hair.
Oh, God, it's Willy Wonka. It's Gene Wilder.
He immediately pointed a gun at Lene and made her call out to her grandmother and mother to get them inside, which she did, while also shouting that there's burglars in the house. When Kay made it into the house, another man with Coke bottle glasses appeared.
What is this, the Trailer Park Boys are
We're
taking?
1990. Vaughn Lester Taylor, 25 years old, was the frizzy-haired man who snuck up on Lene. And then there's Edward Stephen Deli, who's 21. He's the man with the Coke bottle glasses.
These three word names.
I know.
What the hell? Vaughn?
Vaughn is his first name, yep.
Vonn?
Von. Beth came in, sitting down on a stool, and Kay stood beside her, both pleading with Vaughn and Edward, saying that they could take whatever they wanted. However, without saying a word, Vaughn Taylor shot Kay, and she went down.
Where? Like shot her in the head?
In the chest.
Jesus.
Yeah. He then shot Beth in the head, the grandmother.
Oh my God.
She fell down off the stool, but did try to get back up. Vaughn then shot her in the chest and then in the head. Lene, obviously hysterical, just witnessing her mother and grandmother get shot to death. She was begging them to let her call an ambulance, but they just gagged her with a dirty sock and left her in one of the bedrooms.
Jeez.
I did read in some reports that one of the men, I'm thinking it was Deli, brought the family dog into the room for her to like console her or something. But that's just in a few reports, so I don't know if that really happened. The men dumped Kay and Beth's bodies outside and covered them with snow. Lene heard one of the men run back inside and start throwing up in the washroom. Shortly after that, Lene heard snowmobiles approaching, and her stomach dropped, knowing it was her father and her sister Trisha. Vaughn Taylor pulled Lene out of the bedroom and brought her outside with a knife to her throat and the gun pointed into her back. Deli aimed his gun at Rolf and Trisha and ordered them inside. They demanded money from Rolf, which he handed over to them. I think it was around $140. It was a little over $100. When Rolf looked at Lene, he made eye contact with her, and he saw such sadness and fear in her eyes that he knew something terrible had already happened to his wife and his mother-in-law.
Fuck.
Vaughn Taylor then demanded Deli to shoot Rolf. Deli cocked the gun, but he wouldn't shoot. He just stood there pointing the gun at him frozen, not doing anything. So Vaughn Taylor took his gun away from Lene and fired it at Rolf, but the gun jammed. He fired again, nothing. Sadly, though, the third shot did go off, and he shot Rolf in the face. Immediately, Vaughn Taylor and Deli got to work around the house, grabbing gas cans from the garage and dousing everything in gasoline, including Rolf, and setting the house on fire. They then grabbed Trisha and Lene and demanded them to load up the snowmobiles and drive them off. So these poor girls are now saw their family get murdered and are now being kidnapped to be these men's getaway. So while driving on the snowmobile heading towards the garage to get their family car, the girls passed their Uncle Randy on the snowmobiles. And he's thinking, oh, hey, my nieces. And they've got boyfriends.
Oh,
so he's like waving at them all happy. They completely ignore him. They're scared to acknowledge him, fearing the men will kill him too. And Uncle Randy was like, what the hell?
That's not like
This
them.
is not like my nieces at all to treat me like that. But then he's thinking, okay, just snobby teenage girls. One of the men even asked Trisha, who was that? And Trisha said, just someone that lives up here being nice. They finally arrive at the garage to retrieve the family car. It's a Lincoln. And Vaughn Taylor and Deli load the items up from the house and the girls into the car. He's demanding that they drive them to New York. And they keep telling them, we'll let you go once we get to New York. But considering everything that just happened, they're very doubtful that they're even going to make it out alive.
Yeah.
So Trisha was in the front and Lene was in the back. And as they're pulling out, Uncle Randy sees them again. And he's like, hey, hello, waving at the car. And he even's like, okay, stop the car. But they ignore him. They completely ignore him and drive off. But he does see that Lene is in the car. And he's like, all right, something's up. They were so scared to like show any sign of pleading or that they knew him, again, fearing that Uncle Randy would get shot too.
Yeah.
But now Uncle Randy knows something is up. But before he can really do anything, he sees a man driving towards him on a snowmobile. And it's, again, in the negative 20s. This man has no coat on, no helmet, no gloves. And Uncle
Jesus.
Randy is like, what the hell? But then recognition hits him and he realizes, holy shit, it's my brother Rolf.
Holy fuck.
So Rolf's face was extremely swollen. His eyes were nearly swelled shut.
Oh my God.
He was covered in blood, so much so that bloodsickles had frozen to his face.
Holy
like
fuck.
Dripping off, frozen blood frozen onto his face. He was in terrible shape. So Rolf played dead when he was shot. He played dead when he was doused in gasoline and lit on fire. And then as soon as the girls left the house, like as soon as the people left the house with the girls, he had to run into the shower to put himself out.
Jesus
His snowsuit was caught on fire. So he survived a gunshot to the face and being lit on fire.
Oh my God, this guy's incredible.
So he runs up, he stops the snowmobile and goes to Uncle Randy in a complete panic. And he says, I've been shot, my wife has been killed, and my daughters have been kidnapped. Randy loads Rolf into the back seat of his car and takes off down the canyon, trying over and over to call 911. So this is the 1990s. I'm picturing Zach Morris' cell phone, like the big brick.
Yeah, maybe a car phone.
Yeah. So if you think cell phone service is bad now, just imagine out in the middle of nowhere in the winter in 1990.
Yeah.
So 911, as he's driving, was unsuccessful. The call kept cutting out. He couldn't get through. But he finally gets through to a dispatcher and is able to tell them about the kidnapping and the direction that they're going in. Just as he's about to request a helicopter for his brother, the 911 call cuts out.
Oh, fuck.
So he hightails it into the gas station on the side of the road, like squeals in there and calls 911 from a payphone and just desperately says, I need a helicopter now for my brother. So the cops were on it. They were dispatched immediately. And a cop car actually passed the girls in the Lincoln and immediately turned around.
Oh, shit.
Began following the car.
Yeah.
The men began to panic. They took a right towards the canyon and traveled about another mile or so. But then the car lost control and went into an embankment. It was immediately swarmed with a few cops, but mostly townspeople with their shotguns and pistols.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it was swarmed with a healthy mix of the townsfolk and the police, all drawing their weapons, screaming at the car, get out of the car. And
do we know why they lost control?
it was very icy. Like,
okay.
They were traveling like in a downwards and took a turn. Like, we will post the pictures on our social media, but I'm very much thinking they were catching speed and just lost control of the car.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So everyone's screaming at the car with their weapons drawn, and Trisha, who was in the front, reached back for Lene's hand and just screamed at her, duck. They both ducked and just prayed that they were going to make it out of this alive. Thankfully, there wasn't too much of a standoff. The men exited the car, got down on their hands and knees, and put their hands behind their back. So it just goes to show clearly what kind of cowards they really were, because when they were in control of the situation, they were the big shots and the real tough guys. Soon as the police were on them, they tucked their tail between their legs and...
Please tell me a good Samaritan fucking executed these guys.
So there wasn't much of a standoff, and they were able to apprehend Von Taylor and Edward Deli. Lene began screaming at the cops as the men were on their knees and their hands behind their back. Kill them. Kill them. They just killed my mom, my dad, and my grams. Kill them. Shoot them now. Kill them. End quote.
From the Church of Latter-day Saints.
It's quite an emotional...
Oh, no shit. Fucking kill them. I would fucking grab a gun myself if I was them.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Absolutely. A helicopter came from Rolf, who was in critical condition, and airlifted him to the hospital.
Nice, good.
He made a full recovery.
I wonder do we have like a picture of what his face looks like?
I will post that on our social media as well. But he made a full recovery, absolute definition of a hero. And
no
it just
kidding.
goes back to the beginning about how important family is for him and his wife. And he did to most what would be the impossible. Surviving an attack like that, playing dead.
Fuck. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I know. So, police arrived at the cabin to examine the crime scene. They could smell burnt fabric and burnt hair.
Oh, jeez.
They also found a 12 to 18 inch fresh puddle of blood, which I did show you the photo of, which we'll post on our social media. The puddle was so saturated in the carpet that it bled through the floorboards and created icicles, because that's how cold it was.
God, that's crazy.
There was bullet holes scattered about the stairwell walls. It was described as looking like a war zone. And like, I tried finding reports. I couldn't find out where the dog ended up in all of this. The family dog. I don't know if he survived the fire.
Oh, jeez.
So I don't know. So I will post these crime scene photos on our Instagram. They are pretty horrific, though.
They'll be up on YouTube.
Yes, I know. Thank you, on YouTube as well. They did find Tiede and Beth Potts outside. They checked for a pulse, even though very clearly knowing that there wouldn't be one. In the living room, on top of a coffee table, there was a video camera. So these assholes filmed themselves living their best life for the few short hours they were inside the Tiede home. They were eating their food, napping in their beds, and opening their Christmas gifts. And we'll post the video on our YouTube and social media as well. It is public. Opening the gifts and like laughing about the gifts and calling out who the gifts were for, and like true psychopaths.
Jeez.
And they recorded that all and left it on the kitchen table, or sorry, on the coffee table. I'm assuming they thought it was going to go up in flames, but it didn't. So there was a double funeral held for Kay and Beth. Beth was described by Trish and Lene as full of life and very energetic. Aunt Claudia said of Kay that she was the most devoted mother and would have given anything up for her children. Vaughn Lester Taylor and Edward Deli, they met at a halfway house. Taylor was originally arrested for aggravated burglary, and Edward Deli was arrested for arson. They fled the halfway house one day and hitchhiked their way to Oakley, as Vaughn Taylor had family with a cabin in the area. They spent some time in several empty cabins breaking in, and it's theorized that they spotted the Tiede cabin, saw them leave, and waited for their return. 5 months after the crime, Vaughn Taylor pled guilty to 2 counts of capital murder.
What's capital murder?
Capital murder is a murder that is maybe punished by death.
Oh, okay.
So it involves murder plus some other type of aggravating circumstances.
Interesting.
Yeah. So another example would be like murdering a person while committing another felony like rape or abduction.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So he pled guilty to 2 counts of capital murder to have all the other charges dropped in return for the plea. However, it makes no difference because capital murder still comes with a death penalty. So dropping the other charges makes no difference.
Yeah.
So he was sentenced by a jury, and they decided that he should be sentenced to death for both the murders.
Awesome.
So fuck you and your plea deal.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. You can take that plea deal and shove it up your fucking ass. You piece of shit.
Edward Deli went to trial. Both sisters and Rolf testified. And what is even more amazing is they had no idea that Rolf survived the attack until he walked into the courtroom.
Oh, that's fucking fantastic.
So Rolf testified as well. It was expected that Deli would be found guilty of first-degree murder, but instead he was found guilty of second-degree murder, so without premeditation. So the death penalty was no longer an option for Deli.
Oh, fuck that.
He was sentenced to 5 years to life in prison.
Please tell me he got the life part.
Well, that he was just given that gap. 5 years to... So I'm sure he has hearings once a year or maybe once every 2 years, and they determine whether he's fit to be back in society.
I would say no.
Yeah,
Fuck
absolutely.
that guy.
So Edward Deli is still in prison. So the 5 years to life he's still in prison. And so this happened in 1990. So Von Taylor, however, Mr. Capital Murder, his death sentence was vacated by a judge. So it was vacated for how the public defender did his job. Despite him pleading guilty, the judge ruled that it wasn't valid due to, quote, inexcusably uninformed advice from his defense attorney. The public defender, Elliot Levine, did not conduct any sort of meaningful investigation. Campbell ruled and did not seek out any experts who could have helped Taylor's case. Had Levine looked closely at the case and consulted with experts, Taylor's appellate attorneys, so his appeal attorneys, could have argued he would have uncovered evidence that could have casted significant doubt on whether Taylor was indeed the one that shot and killed the woman and not Edward Deli.
So basically, this public defender was trying to put this piece of shit down.
Yeah. So he's still in prison, and that doesn't necessarily mean he'll be released, but he's no longer on death row.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. So I don't have notes for this, so I might get the term wrong, but I did find out in doing my research for this that they were using birdshot ammo, which is a canister with smaller pellets inside. So they believe, remember, Beth Potts was shot in the head, but was able to, certainly enough, as we saw here today, enough to kill a person, but it's not just like one bullet and you're done. They kind of scatter. So that's likely how
Rolf
survived. He did testify with scars on his face. He does have some permanent scarring on his face. But
so would that be like weaker than a 22?
I don't know about the strength for it, but
that's interesting.
Yeah, but that I did find that interesting, and I did read in one report as well that when Kay was shot, and then her mother was shot, she had reached over her chest and said, "I've been shot in the chest." So she didn't die immediately. She died quickly, but not immediately after being shot.
Jesus.
Same with Beth Potts, and Rolf clearly surviving. But can you imagine Uncle Randy? Like
Holy
this,
fuck.
He's a hero too. Like and the daughters, like everyone, like is a hero in this story.
Way to go with your gut.
Mm-hmm.
For all of them.
I feel like a part of me...
Like the girls going, like, just not acknowledging Uncle Randy?
Yes, and they're not on snowmobiles together. It's Trisha with one man and Lene with one man.
And so they were both thinking the same thing.
How they both remained in sync to not plead or acknowledge that they knew Uncle Randy.
Yeah, that's
interesting. And to do the same thing in the car. And it is a really remarkable story. It's heartbreaking, but it's also such a story of triumph. I did see, we will post it on our social media as well. They still have the family cabin. They restored it.
Oh, good.
It was such a big part of their family and the heart of their family and celebrating the holidays. And now Lene and Trish go up there with their families.
Wow.
So it's
way
quite
to be
a
pretty
story.
stoic, eh?
Yeah,
Shit.
yeah.
To say, like, fuck you in this entire situation,
Yeah.
that's not going to change our traditions.
I know. That's so brave because I feel like a part of me would not have that strength.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you think you would just, like, psychologically tie that place with such bad memories and
you do hear
bad feelings.
Yeah. It's not uncommon. You do hear of places where horrific tragedies happened. Those places are usually torn down.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to give those two men any more of their power. And that is what Lene and Trish said in an interview, is that they had already taken my mom and my Grams, and we're not going to let them take anything else.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm. That is a survivor story of the Tiede family, is how I'll label it, and not not give those two dirtbags any more fame.
Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah. So what'd you think of that one?
It wasn't your stereotypical Christmas story, you know.
Yeah.
But goodwill towards all men. And
Yeah, we are missing a few key components from,
yeah.
you know, but
What a way to end up on a naughty list.
absolutely.
A pair of fucking assholes.
Yeah,
like
no
that.
kidding.
Jeez.
And like,
They're fucked.
they're truly like the grossest looking people. You know, just to think, they were just dealing with burglary and arson.
Yeah.
And they were already in the halfway house. They were already on the road to being out of prison.
Fucking idiots.
And then, to me, I completely believe that Von Taylor was the ringleader.
Oh, yeah.
You know, especially demanding Deli to shoot and he couldn't. And then Lene hearing a man throwing up. I'm assuming Deli was the one throwing up.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but...
Still, fuck them. They should be in the ground.
Yes. If they were 21 and 25 in 1990...
Yeah, they'd be in their 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, Von Taylor looks exactly the same. Just short hair.
Well, to hell with them.
And he's fat.
But... but, that's an amazing story for those girls and
Yeah.
Uncle Randy and Rolf.
Yeah.
Shit. And it's
Yeah.
so sad about the mother and the grandmother.
And I can't imagine how Sean feels, the son,
Yeah.
who just completely got out, like, made it through this thing unscathed physically.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was tremendous emotional pain, but he opted to stay with his aunt, you know?
Yeah, it's something, like, it's interesting when you think about it. You think you're safe when you isolate yourself
Yeah.
like that.
It's a
And- but-
catch-22 sometimes,
Yeah, but if someone knows you're there,
Yeah.
you know,
So, you know, tape those guns under tables and chairs and
oh, totally.
knives in drawers.
Secret
and-
places.
Yeah.
Jeez.
If Home Alone has taught us anything.
Set traps
Duck
for
feathers
any...
and tar.
Yeah. Oh, man, if only Kevin McAllister was there. Kick
Yeah.
their asses.
No kidding.
That was a shitty story.
Yeah, that's
Thank
a
you
sad
for
one.
ruining my Sunday.
Yep. Anytime. But kudos to the Tiede family.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing, some amazing survivors there.
Well, I got nothing else to say.
All right. We'll be here next time. We hope you'll join us.
Do we know what any of their gifts were?
I think it does show some on the video. One was I believe a baseball card album.
I was like wondering, like, what year was this?
1990.
1990. It was
Yeah.
like an SNES.
Yeah.
It was like a Super Nintendo, right?
Oh, you and your. I think they were, you know, grown up. Like, the girls were, I think, 16.
You're never too old for video games. Are you kidding me?
If you guys could see the look I am getting from across the table right
I
now.
look forward to being in my hundreds, playing
Skyrim,
Skyrim. Yeah.
Stardew Valley,
Yeah,
StarCraft.
The 70th anniversary edition of Skyrim. I've made a 1400th new character.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening.
You can check us out on YouTube at Catam Concoction.
That's CATAMCONCOCTION.
And on Instagram at cast_aghast.
Remember, there's a silent H.